Today I'm going to go over some of the leveling sensors in a Jazzy Air 2, as well as some problems that can happen to those sensors and some easy solutions you can do to fix those problems. So for this to make sense, I'm going to start by explaining how the sensors work in the Air 2. So the Air 2 has a built-in safety mechanism where if you raise the seat lift up on an uneven surface, your chair will beep at you. It will sound like this. And can sometimes be followed by a brief slowing down of speed. So the way the sensor works is if any of these front caster, front caster wheels is leveled up like this, it pushes down on this sensor right here and it triggers the sound. There's little sensors underneath all of this that cause that to happen. So if you hear that sound while your seat lift is up, it can mean one of two things. The most common reason for that is your chair is not on level ground and you need to get your chair on level ground. Then the beeping should go away and you can resume normal operation. Now what can happen is sometimes these sensors are too tight and will get stuck. So you bring your seat lift up, and I'll show you with the seat lift. So when the Air 2 seat is down, it'll have both of those sensors down. And then when you go up, you can see them rising. Now what can happen is sometimes if these are too tight, it won't go up when the chair goes up. One might get stuck down and will trigger this sound. So an easy solution for this is, let me get the seat lift all the way up, we can loosen the sensor. So in order to access that, we're going to have to take off this front plate here. It's 4 screws. So I would recommend a long Phillips screwdriver. You got to screw in here, down here, and then the last one is down here. I've pre-loosened them to make this video shorter. And then this front cover will come off. So get this last one out. This front cover slides off. These are your light cables. You can unplug these if you need this out of the way. It does not matter which one they go into. And now we have access into the sensors. So you can see how it works. This gets pushed down, it pulls on the spring, and it triggers a little button underneath here. So in order to loosen that, let's say it's too tight because this can wiggle. So that looks all right, but I'm going to loosen it just for example purposes. You're going to need a 1/2 inch wrench and a 10 millimeter wrench. So the 1/2 inch wrench, you can see this bolt going through right here. This is your suspension. It is tied to this caster system here. You can see the suspension moving when I lift this front caster, and that's what would trigger the sensor if you were on uneven ground. But if this is stuck, you would take your 1/2 inch wrench and put it on the end of the bolt on this side. Right? And then my hand's out of the way. The other, for the 10 millimeter bolt, it's going to go on this right here. And then you can tighten or loosen the sensor if you need to. Now I would not tighten it any more than about 1/2 turn or loosen it more than 1/2 turn. So I'm going to loosen this and you'll see the sensor go out just a little bit. Do a full 1/2 turn. Very slightly moved. And now it's got way more wiggle room than it did earlier. And it is less likely to get stuck. I'm going to tighten this back because there's nothing wrong with this Air 2. And now you can see it doesn't have as much wiggle room. So if this is too tight, sometimes it'll get stuck in this downward position and cause our alarm. When you're done, you just put the cover back on and then screw in your 4 screws and then you're good to go. So continuing on from earlier, another common problem that can happen with the Air 2 and the sensors is if your seat lift is all the way down, your chair will sometimes give off that alarm. Now that alarm should only be used when the seat lift is going up, so something is wrong with a second sensor that we're going to cover. So when the Jazzy Air 2 comes down, it actually pushes down on these plates and it will hit the sensors we were talking about earlier and theoretically make the alarm go off. but there's a second sensor. I'm going to try to zoom in on it. It's right in here, that inhibits that alarm when the actual seat goes down. So when the seat goes down, you can see in there, that little sensor. You can hear the clicking. When the Air 2 seat goes down, it pushes down on this plate. And that plate will trigger that sensor, and it will prevent that level alarm from going off. So, for example, I'm going to back out the camera a bit. If I push this down, it triggers the alarm. Right? Now, if I push this down, and then push this down, this is what triggered the alarm earlier. Nothing happens. So what can happen is if this sensor is out of whack or is not being triggered by this plate being pushed down, your seat lift will think it's being elevated on an uneven surface when actually your chair is just down as it normally should be. So in order to fix this, it's pretty simple. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So I've moved the camera to give you a better view of the sensor. With this out of the way, there is your sensor. And then again, like I said, when this plate goes down, it will trigger it. That way, when you're driving normally with your seat lift all the way down, you're not going to throw up the sensors. But if your seat is giving off this alarm while your chair is all the way down, not in seat lift, this is probably what's going on. This is a very common problem to happen on an Air 2. So in order to fix this, I'm going to move this just out of my way, and there's a single Phillips screw right there, and it's holding a plate that keeps the sensor in place. So I'm going to unscrew that. And I hope I don't drop the screw. Pull the screw out, and I did drop the plate. Yeah, here's the plate. That's what it looks like, and it holds this sensor in place. And now you can pull the sensor off. There it goes. And that's what it looks like. So the solution to this is you're going to bend this sensor very slightly. I'm trying to get it in a good view for the camera. Yeah, so here's the sensor. That's what it looks like. The chair goes down, pushes down on this. So in order to fix the problem, you're going to very slightly bend this sensor. If I can get in here. There we go. I put a very slight bend in it, so now when that plate comes down, it'll push on this. Then when you're done, you'll just install it again. A little tricky to get on there. But there's two little posts that it sits on. You'll see them when you pull it off. Okay, so now I have the sensor back on, and I'm going to install this plate that holds it in. So I like to put my screw through the top of the plate, get your Phillips screwdriver started. Then you don't have to get it exactly lined up. I just like to start my screw. All right, the screw is started. It's not going to fall down on me. I can line up this plate. There's two sets of pegs that are holding your sensor in, and this plate will also go through those pegs. There we go. And then I'll just tighten this. You can see how it just holds it to the side of the chair. Yep, and then when the Air 2 comes down, it'll push this and inhibit that beep, and it should solve your problem. And then when you're done, you can just put our cover back on. You don't need to take the cover off to access that sensor, it's just a bit easier. But yeah, when you're done, we're going to put the cover back on, plug your two light cables back in, and then your 4 screws, then you should be all good to go.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And my name is Alex. We're co-owners of Marc's Mobility.
I started this company in 1995.
We sell many products, not just what you see in this video. If you have any questions or concerns, please call us at the number below at 800-677-6293. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.